Here we are, another episode of perSPECtive. This week is going to be a little bit just chatting board games, chatting expansion ideas. We just a fun, creative idea that may flow into another episode. Who knows? But Keegan, how you doing, buddy?
It's been a week.
How you doing?
It's a week. It's 4 Fridays in a row that haven't been Fridays, so 4 disappointments in a row. But 3-day weekend coming up, so that's good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's nice. What do you got a 3-day weekend? Just took off?
No, we got Monday off.
For what?
It's Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, dang, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. That's nice. Okay.
Do you have to work on Monday?
Yes.
Quit. Leave your company. Take a different one.
I should actually go check on that, but I'm pretty sure we work on Monday.
Unfortunate.
Yes.
How's your week? How's Max's week?
Max, how's your week?
Same old, same old.
How's the wife?
Cars still break down on Martin Luther King Jr. Wife is sick. My wife's expecting twins, so yeah, she's very pregnant, and I had to miss last week when we did this because she was not feeling good. But today I was able to make it, so I'm glad to be here.
Right. So this week we got another special guest on joining us, Ryan Courtney. You may know him from designing Pipeline and Curious Cargo, one of which we did one of our 3-2-1 videos on. Definitely need to play that one again. Ryan, how you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's get to know you a little bit. A question that I always ask our guests is, what's one of your first memories of board gaming?
Let's see. So I would have been playing like the classic games, like the classic, American Family style games. So maybe something like Risk or Life or Monopoly. Any of those things would have probably been my first games. And I didn't actually get into playing hobby games until right around my mid-20s. So that was I'm still relatively new to the hobby game part of things.
Sure. And who did you mostly play with when you were playing early on?
With my family, so it would be with my 2 brothers or with my parents, things like that.
Yeah.
And in college, I would play Scrabble with my mother quite a bit.
Okay. Like online or just actually in person?
Yeah, online. When the like Words with Friends or whatever apps came out, that was pretty much the only board gaming I would have been doing in at that time. Would have been through those sort of social media sites or whatever it was doing, or apps, whatever way it was doing it.
Yeah. Okay. And what was the game that kind of got you into more of the modern board games?
I bought one game. It was a complete and total flop, so I won't mention what it was.
You can call it out. It's okay.
No. And then I think the second one that I purchased was Carcassonne, and we played a lot of Carcassonne. So I'm sure I played that one over 100 times, and I didn't have a big collection or anything at the time. I had the one that flopped, and then like Carcassonne, and so we just played Carcassonne over and over again. And then I went through most of. I went on BGG and looked at like what the top 100 was, and I picked up a bunch of like Stefan Feld's games. Okay. And those were sort of my introduction to the hobby, was sort of Stefan Feld.
Sure. I mean,
I'm a big Stefan Feld fan.
Yeah, we all are. We're working on a February Feld month of games. We're figuring out how we're going to do that, but yeah, it's a big one for us too. So I don't want to go too much into like your like actual design side, but
Okay.
how long into like the modern hobby before you started thinking about designing a game yourself? How long
Let's
have
see.
you been playing?
I think it would be one year.
1 year? Oh, dang.
About 1 year.
Okay.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. Is there a game in your collection that you would never get rid of?
Probably won't ever get rid of my Arkwright game, though it's hard to get played. So maybe I get rid of it just because it's difficult to get to the table. But it's definitely up there as, if not my favorite, one of my favorite games. So
Okay.
that would be the one that it would be the hardest for me to get rid of, probably.
Sure. Have you either of you
I
played
haven't
it?
played it.
Haven't played it.
You've
I
almost
keep
bought it.
I keep eyeing that game and wanting to pick it up, but I just never pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, it
What?
looks dry, but it's pretty fun.
I'm a huge fan of Dry. I'm all about it. I just always look at it and like, I'll wait because I don't know when I'm going to get it to the table. That's also my main problem with it.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
I've had War of the Ring painted for like 3 years. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it, but I've never gotten it to the table.
What about it do you love so much?
I mean, it's mathy. It's an optimization game, which is sort of the style of game I typically like to play. So I like math. I know some people shy away from math, but for me, it's actually enjoyable. So I actually seek it out, and it's definitely mathy. It's one of I would say that of the games that are, typically published, other than stuff that's maybe like really niche, it pushes me harder than most out there.
Yeah.
And so the challenge is a lot of fun. And even if I'm like doing really well in it, I always feel like I could have done something better. And so
Sure.
that obviously brings me back in. So yeah, if I fail at a game, it's got a good chance of me liking it.
Nice. Yeah. I'm probably the one that aligns with you the most with the mathy side of games. So you would consider yourself more of a thinker than a themer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the themes if they are sort of real world based. So I do like sort of like the business simulator style games or economic simulators where it feels like I'm playing as something, like Vinos, right? I'm working to, start a vineyard and produce wine. I like those types of themes. I like the current real world themes. But outside of that, the other themes don't really pull me in that much. So
Okay.
I'm not going to stay away from a game because of its theme, unless it's just incredibly offensive, I guess. But for the most part,
Yeah.
theme doesn't do too much for me.
Okay. So do you like Teotihuacan, Tawantinsuyu, or Tekhenu more, if you've played those ones?
Okay, so Zolkin's not in that list, but Zolkin.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I forgot Zolkin. It's like, but I
And
guess
you forgot Trismegistus too.
yeah.
All
I
the
always
games.
think that like those like Teotihuacan, Tekhenu, and Tawantinsuyu are a little bit heavier than Zolkin. But
Zolkin's got some,
I think Zolkin
some
is
choices
heavier
in
than-
there.
really, oh man,
We have to play it again. We haven't played
fun.
it for a while.
interesting. I felt always Teotihuacan felt more mathy to me. Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
you're
I think-
all wrong
I
because Tekenu's the best. But I'm just kidding.
I think so. So Zolkin I had played online quite a bit, and so I have played it at kind of a higher level. And yeah,
Okay.
if you miss your timing on that game by a half turn, right? If someone can bump you off your timing, they can that might be it for you. So yeah, I might think it's heavier simply because I've played it more against, people with ELO rankings that are high, and then so I understand it better. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a big fan of Zulkin.
Okay. Interesting. Keegan, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I was thinking about this a little bit. Do you have any games that are a current like obsession right now, like a game that you either keep thinking about or a game that you keep wanting to get to the table?
So I play Letter Jam regularly, so that's one that I think a lot of people wouldn't expect me to like, but I'm actually a big fan of word games. So while I do typically stick with math type games, I do play word games quite a bit. So
Interesting.
over the holidays, it has not happened quite as much, but I was playing Letter Jam a couple times a week.
Dang. Okay.
So yeah, I play that one pretty much constantly, and I expect that to continue quite a bit. I've played what is it called, Darwin's Journey recently.
Yeah.
Yep.
That one is quite combo-y, and it's fun to get your combos. Maybe not as fun for your opponent while you're comboing like 7 things together, and you're like, I mean, this turn's just going to take a little while. I'm not even APing. It's just, I have to do 7 different things because it all combo together. Like I unlock one thing, and that unlocks another thing, and you just have to go through the motions of doing all those things.
Yeah.
But it's fun. That's a pretty fun one. It's I don't know if you all have played or not, but it's kind of similar to Newton, but I would say even more combo-y.
Okay.
That's one that we've been talking about, wanting to hop on TTS to play. Like that one and Coffee Traders are 2 that are on the radar right now.
Yeah, tomorrow we're going to be doing Coffee Traders, just so we can do like an initial review and see whether we're going to actually. I know. Wait, Keegan, I already
pre-ordered it day one. Yeah, I've been waiting for that. I saw Heavy Cardboard do their preview in February on it. I was like, "Where's more info on this?" And then we finally got it.
Well, yeah, and I've been like watching videos on Darwin's Journey, trying to figure out like, I've already backed it on Kickstarter, and I'm trying to decide like, do I stay with it? And I really love Russian railroads, so and like that also has this crazy like. Combo thing that can go on where you're just like things chain react into it. I think that's so much fun trying to like math it out and like be like, okay, 2 turns from now I'm gonna do this crazy ass combo. So that just makes me like go, okay, I think I'm gonna like Darwin's Journey.
Is it on Tabletop Simulator right now?
Yeah.
Was that okay?
Yeah, that's where I played.
So that's exciting. So yeah, I'm a little more now excited about Darwin's Journey. Okay, very cool. Well, that helps. That helps my decision. And now this Kickstarter now. All right, so let's talk about our topic here, which is expansion ideas. This one's. This week's a bit more of a design, free-flowing, creative episode. Let's see what we can come up with. I personally have like a list of 7 games that I've personally as. So Matt is laughing over here because he comes like, I have no games that
I'm not like I play the game to like when he was telling me, he was like, we're gonna do expansion ideas. I was like, expansions that we like. He's like, no, like ideas for expansions. I was like, that's what the designers do. I just play them and give my feelings about them. I don't come up with them.
For me, like so, and I've talked about this a couple times. I'm an architect, so like I have this design mentality that I've gone through school, and like I may love something, but my mindset is just to always keep designing and thinking of new things, what I like what can I add to it, what could be interesting. And so like when I play a game, that's always like an instant thought that goes through my mind, and I find it just a fun exercise of what would be interesting to this game that you could add without making it bloated, but just like continue on themes that it's already present there. that could just like down the line after playing it be like, ooh, what, like, okay, we've played this enough, what can then be added to like just continue that fun that you've already had? And just like that's the way my mind is always thinking, and maybe I should just go get a job like coming up with ideas
general.
for expansions for design for other games.
I think that's like my creative writing and theater background too leads me to like think about like what else can be there in a way. I think it's always nice to get like a baseline, and having it's always hard for me at least to start an idea, but having something to go off of is always nice to like think about and create off of.
Yeah,
It's exciting.
That's always been like my strongest thing is like taking an idea that's already there and expanding off of it, rather than just like the initial idea. I've just been a lot better at expanding from something that's already there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my mind. So, let's. I suppose I can start since I do have a list of things that I can just bring up and we can all just talk about it. Like, feel free to shut down my idea. Feel free to expand that. Say like, ooh, but what about? Like branch off from whatever I might say. Like my initial ideas may not be good. Who knows? But it's just an idea that comes to mind. One thing that we recently had talked about actually on one of our videos, our Wingspan video, and thinking of ideas of what their new expansions will be. And I've always thought of ways that could introduce the color of the eggs more and make them more integral to the game. And I always figured like some ideas that I was thinking of is like some birds actually either like in like each like obviously each column has like the one eggs that you're paying are 2 eggs, but that bird could be like if you pay with a blue egg you only have to pay 1 instead of the 2 as part of their thing. So then like when you're actually deciding on which eggs you're going to start putting on birds, it actually starts to matter, and maybe you need to think ahead of time of which eggs do I actually want to start grabbing instead of them just whatever, they're just colors for the game. So I've always thought of like, yeah, what can we do with these eggs to actually make them part of your strategy and engine?
Do they have anything like that so far? I haven't played the expansion, so.
No.
Have you played Wingspan?
I have played Wingspan.
Okay, I don't know what you're talking about.
As far as I know, I haven't played all the like new expansions. I've played just the original game, and yeah, as far as I know, they don't have anything with the eggs. But you could imagine you could do something like a set collection of some sort, or you could combo certain birds, do certain eggs. Now I don't know if that breaks their trying to keep things fairly scientific, right? So like,
yeah, but I mean, like the whole egg thing is really not that scientific, right? Like,
no,
you're paying eggs to get some more birds out, but I don't know how that really
maybe
relates.
they're
Like
hatching.
some of the,
maybe they're
I guess they're hatching
baby
and
birds.
they're like, I don't know, it becomes more specific. I don't know, like
I do always like when expansions add like negative point things. Like I know like Aiden hates like negative tracks on things, but even like if you think like or corruption type things, you'd have eggs that are bad, like a bad egg. Like give you negative points at the end, but you can use as a wild thing. Or I don't know. I have no idea, but I do like that in games. Like something simple like Lords of Waterdeep. When you get the expansion, it adds the corruption track, which has more powerful actions, but eventually is going to hurt you at the end. I always think that's interesting in games, but that's a very a lot of games do that nowadays. But
yeah, and I guess it could also be like at like certain birds tell you to put out certain like colored eggs, which then like you could add the end of round bonuses of like the number of green eggs in the marshlands. Whoever has the most in there, right, can be that be like the end of round bonus or something, or you can at the end of a round card be you pay a certain number of colored eggs and you can get some kind of bonus or trade them in for resources for the next round.
It's surprising to me that they haven't actually integrated that with just anything like that already because the game card comes with so many different colored eggs. That's just actually surprising me that they.
I think they do. I think they haven't done it though because I think they are trying to keep the game more at family level in a way, and that would take it out of that realm. I think. So, I mean, that wouldn't be like a necessary thing to play with, but I do think it would take it out of that like family friendly mindset you could teach this to pretty much anyone who's a gamer or not a gamer, and you can play and have a chance of winning.
Yeah, but I guess at a certain point you have so many expansions, right? Because I don't know how many more expansions they have left of regions of the world that they still need to have birds. There could be a point where one expansion is fully like dedicated to like maybe making the game heavier, right? Because you already have so many like expansions that you don't have to necessarily include this one, just because there's already so much in the game that just adding more and trying to keep that theme I don't know that it's needed at a certain point, just because there is already so much content available for it.
You call it the Big Bird expansion, and the cover is Big Bird from Sesame Street, and then they have to like get the rights for that.
Yeah, that would be cheap, I'm sure.
No.
Just do a PBS pledge drive.
In general, like Ryan, this is a good question for you because you like heavy games and your games make my brain melt. But what's your opinion on games including or adding expansions in that make an aspect of the game easier?
I'm doing that in one of the Curious Cargo expansions. So,
Are you really?
Okay.
My opinion is that it sometimes needs to be done.
Yeah, I didn't want to. Did Ryan or Keegan tell you our pipeline story?
Nope, we haven't talked about it. No.
Oh, we had a birthday party game day for Ryan, and we started at like 9
or 10
in the morning. Yeah.
We played till about 3 in the morning, but we started pipeline at midnight. After already having gamed for the wrong choice. That should have started the day, not end the day.
that was our first introduction to pipeline.
I'm pretty sure your game broke my brain. I had it felt like the equivalent of a hangover the next day.
I think what we decided our theme for playing that was oh fuck, I should have done that. I should have, as you ended your turn, you go, well, fuck, I should have not done that. I should have done that.
Pipeline is in my top 3 I messed up games of all time. That's really high up there for me.
It's easy to make mistakes in that game, and it's also easy for somebody to do something to also make you make mistakes. So, yeah, it's not the most family friendly.
Well, we're used to that, but I guess we weren't. I guess we didn't know how much we were getting into with it quite.
Right.
I was doing so good the first half of the game
too.
Yeah,
the cute little box with the cute little critters, and then
that was a brain burner for sure.
Yeah, I know. It's like we're like, all right, we're doing this, and we're gonna film our first initial reaction of our 3, 2, 1 on how we're doing it, and we're like, oh god, this is way more than I expected here, and yeah.
But that also makes sense if you're saying one of your favorite games you can't get rid of is Arkwright, then
right.
I wonder how much did would then have had Carcassonne maybe had an effect on your design if because your games have a bit of a tile laying aspect to them.
So the tile laying aspect I was working on making procedurally generated apps, and then also working on creating auto solvable things for apps, so that I could put up a puzzle and then I would have solutions and hints for it along the way. And we were doing that for video games or mobile games. And then I was like, I think I could probably move this into the tabletop space. And so that's where I came up with the tile set. But I do like tile laying games. I like building something out. I like a lot being able to see what that you've created something, like visually it looks interesting. Like Pipeline, every time you play, you get something completely different. Unless you really suck, and then then it might be just like a couple of tiles on the board. But like, as you get better, it gets more expansive, and it could potentially look very different each time that you play. And I like sort of that aspect. Carcassonne has a similar aspect.
Oh yeah, and and you could really screw yourself over right in the beginning of Pipeline. I thought like I had fucked myself over so bad because I was like, oh no, I don't have money now and I don't know what I'm gonna fucking do here. But
yeah, Pipeline gave me some really heavy Splotter vibes. I was playing, I was like, man, this is just as torturous as like Food Chain Magnate is at the beginning, where it's just like you just screw yourself for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We had a so the original version of the game was a little sharper around the edges. It was really tough, and the publisher at the time, publisher's Capstone, and they had done Arkwright, and pretty much that was the main game that they had published at the time. So at the time, their brand was just like strictly like, we're gonna do very heavy things. And I was like, I think this game's gotten out of hand. Like, I'm not going to be, like, we're not going to be able to sell any copies because, people are just going to have a terrible time. And so I was like, he's like, yeah, but this is our brand. Like, we want to have it heavy and whatnot. I was like, okay. So I was like, why don't you and I play? I told Clay, the owner of Capstone, like, why don't we play? And I won't assist you. Because normally, like, when you're playing with the publisher and stuff, you're assisting them, trying to help them through strategies and things like that, so they can see like the best, best view of the game. So I was like, okay, I need to convince him that like this is an awful idea.
That's hysterical.
That's awesome. And then they still bought it.
We ended up playing, and he ended up scoring negative, and his score just kept going more and more negative. Because there you had to like pay to feed your. Essentially, you had to pay your workers in the game, which you don't have to do now. You had workers that you paid, and you had to pay to run your pipelines. Like there was a production cost to do those things, and then there was more obligations, as in like there was something called deliveries, which was sort of the opposite of a contract. So contracts, you set up these things that you have to fulfill. With deliveries, you're also setting up essentially a contract, but those are things that you'll receive. If you don't have the money to do them, those fail and they just penalize you. And then like you can't afford to pay your workers. it just went crazy. And his score just went straight like deep into the negatives.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, all right, so do you agree we can maybe put out this more streamlined version of the game as the thing? And so fortunately, I think we made the right decision in the end, but I was a little nervous there at first.
I mean, it would be cool to have a game day and then be like, how'd your game go? I won with a score of negative 120. That was a high score.
Wait. I'm seeing here an opportunity to put out that other ridiculous game. Just like, I know there would be like a partial market to just be like, no, okay, so Pipeline. Here was more of the original idea that don't expect to like, it's like, what's that game that we played that it's like, you don't expect to win, but you're just playing the game for the experience.
This War of Mine.
This War of Mine. You can't win it, but it's more about the experience. Go into the original version of Pipeline and go, okay, just know you're going to end negative, but do your best to get as close as possible to zero and see where people like just see that like just like that the post of people like, I got -2, I almost did it. That would be
that's your future. Just the hardcore mode.
Yeah, the hardcore expansion, hardcore mode.
Oh.
I guess that kind of leads into then the idea then too of like, are there expansions that make the game more difficult, and is that a good route to go with the game? Like, are people looking for an expansion that makes the game more complicated, or are they wanting something that like gently adds something into the game that doesn't convolute it?
I think it sort of depends on your audience.
Yeah.
So I think if you like if you make it an expansion for Arkwright, right? I could see you putting out something that makes it simpler so you could reach a new audience, but the audience who already likes Arkwright doesn't, I don't think, want a simpler version. I think the audience for Arkwright would want something maybe potentially even heavier.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it really depends on your audience. With Pipeline, I think I could go the same way, right? I could make the same sort of choices as, do I want to, sort of reward the people who've been replaying my game multiple times and go a little heavier, or do I want to try to broaden out and see if I can get, maybe dip into that more medium weight style player?
Yeah.
With the Pipeline expansions, where the first one is catering towards rewarding people who've played and enjoy it.
I could see there being a market for almost doing the both directions, right? And making one one where you definitely don't want to play, that these two are not compatible together. But one is, one allow you to get it into the game more if you're more on the medium weight side. But then you're like, all right, we've played this game, we've really enjoyed it. Where's the next level challenge up? Like, can we really challenge you here? What's that?
I said Agricola has done that. It's like there's base game Agricola, and then they made the family edition of Agricola. But then there's also Farmers of the Moor for people that want like more hardcore Agricola misery farming.
Right. Yeah, I tend to think that when it goes easier, it ends up being a standalone type of expansion that can typically just be bought and played by itself. And if it goes heavier, usually it's more of your traditional expansion. Though we have thought about trying to release the original Pipeline as a standalone because it has so much extra stuff we can't really release as a traditional expansion. But it's tricky, right? Because you need to sell enough copies for it to make sense to go through the whole process of paying the artist and getting it manufactured and things like that. So at least people will know, right? Like
You're trying.
At least people would know not to buy it.
Well, I think with starting with heavier games and going heavier makes sense too. Whereas if you were to take a mid-weight game and then try and make it super Pipeline, it sits at, to me, a level of game, but there's not, there's a million, I feel mid-weight Euros right now, and there's not as many on the heavier end. I could be wrong, but at least that's what I look into. So, like you said, dulling it down to make it a little more for everyone. As somebody looking to buy games, I don't know that I'd go, oh, I want the easier version of a hard game. I would just go for more mid-weight style game in the first place. But if I liked this hard game, this heavier game, I played it enough, I would definitely want more to it to make it more difficult. It's oh, I've beat it on medium, now I want to kick it up to hard or insane mode or whatever on a video game.
Right, psychologically, it's a little weird to tell someone we don't think you can handle.
Yeah. Here's the dumb version.
And then when you have an accomplishment in the dumb version, you just feel dumb.
We listened to you on Pipeline. You're too dumb to keep playing it. Here's the easy version.
Yeah, that's gotta be. That definitely does have to be tricky.
Okay. So I'm gonna go really difficult, and then when it comes out and people go, "Holy crap, this is Lacerda level," and I go, "Oh, I understand. You're too dumb. Here you go. Here's
That'd be great for public relations.
That's the Twitter. Just oh, I get it, guys. You're too dumb. Here you go.
I don't think that's
my
the
PR
image you're shooting for.
That's
PR manager would be
flop.
"Oh God,
I'm quitting.
I'm quitting." Our PR manager just Keegan being my PR be "I'm done. Fuck you." No, you dumbass.
I'm bailing. You're on your own.
You're on your own.
Dig yourself out.
Well, okay, so I do have a question. This is another designer type question, I guess. Then, so did you design Pipeline with just the openness to have maybe expansions in the future? Or did you feel it's done, and then something came to you later? Because that's certain games that have come out, and then they come out with an expansion 2 weeks later. I'm like, why wasn't that in the original game? Like, some things it seems so simple, but I'm just like, did the person just not come up with it till later? Or was it, like, I'm always curious what, like, the reason would be for an expansion. I mean, you know, if it's been a year or so, I imagine it just wasn't able to make it in the game, or it got come up with later. But certain games, yeah, they come out and then, like, instantly there's an expansion, which almost seems like a money grab type thing on some things, but...
Yeah, so I would argue it's definitely not a money grab. Why? Because we don't make any money anyway.
Well, I didn't mean you personally, but I meant...
Yeah, there's just not enough money to be had to be grabbing at. So I would say that that's almost never the case. Maybe with like the super miniature games, you know, like the ones with miniatures, not small.
Oh, yeah.
And, but yeah, Pipeline I designed with, and Curious Cargo I designed with expansions during the initial design. And on top of that, I try to design sort of in sort of triples. So I'll take a mechanism and I will sort of work on that mechanism in sort of various different ways. And like in Pipeline, I was going to mix multiple mechanisms together. And so what I do is I pull mechanisms out of that and put them into other games. That's sort of where your Curious Cargo and Cargo and Pipeline were designed at the same time. So another thing that you'll see is that just because a game is published at a different time, right? So Curious Cargo is came out a year after Pipeline, doesn't mean that it wasn't necessarily designed at the exact same time. So those two were designed at the same time. It was when I was playing around with that mechanism. And I typically sort of build the sort of like, if you were to think of it in like a thematic way, I build the world around the game, right? And then we take parts of it out and we give those to people. And part of the reason we don't throw everything in the box is just because it ends up being overwhelming. So Pipeline already, you know, Pipeline can be tough for folks, right? So if you throw too many modules that they have to think about, do I want to put this module in or not this one in? And then a lot of marketing of games seems to be like, oh, this is a heavy strategic game. And then it's like, you know, lightweight, right? So like a lot of times these light games will say that something's heavy. And so people don't necessarily listen to you, especially when you're like me, who is a nobody, right? Like I have no name. So why would anybody listen to what I say? So if I say like, this is heavy, people will say, oh yeah, so did this other game that is super light. And then they'll ignore me and they'll throw every single module and expansion in on the first play because that's what they're used to doing. And then they'll have an absolutely terrible time and they'll be like negative 7,000 on Pipeline. And then, you know, then all I get is just a whole bunch of rage all the time that I have to deal with, you know? So,
well, sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, I would say that most people who are trying to do this sort of professionally or you know, semi-professionally are trying to build their games around you know, something that can be expanded, and they're thinking about those expansions sort of ahead of time.
Yeah, I don't know how well I would have handled Pipeline if it was your original version. I mean, I barely could hold it together as I was playing it. So yeah, I definitely see what you mean there. It's that could be, I guess, for trying to introduce people to games too, because I do a lot of reading the rule books and like, I mean, we all do, but like I do a lot of researching for games and reading the rule books and trying to introduce people to them. And when I'm reading a rule book or trying to learn a game for the first time, and there's like, take module 6 out, what was it, like Maracaibo? I think like I had to play like 3 times before I finally learned how to set the game up correctly, because there's like so many different ways to set that game up. It's like it's extremely confusing. So yeah, when they throw too many modules in, I see what you mean.
Yeah, and I think it does help to have like us, you know, like Pipeline has a 16-page rule book, I think that's the right number, but I think it is helpful not to have a huge rule book simply because it's not going to scare people away as much. So like, I don't think that Arkwright is the hardest game in the world to teach, but it comes with 2 rule books both of them are 40 pages long or so, and then it also has a player's guide thing that's another 40 pages. So you just like open the thing and you're just like, what the heck? So like, if you don't have someone to help you with that, then it looks intimidating. Whereas if I can give you a thing and it's like, here's the 16 pages of this rules, and yes, 16 pages is still a lot for a lot of games, but that is a lot better than if I gave you 16 pages and I gave you 10 different modules you could put in, which each took a page, and then it can be overwhelming.
That's surprising. I didn't remember how long the rule book was, but 16 pages is not bad.
Yeah.
Like that's not.
I just got the colonists in today, and that made me think when you said that. I was like, yeah, there's 3 rule books in this box. Yeah, exactly. One of them's 24 pages long.
Right. When you see that, that's it's tough, right?
Well, we were doing Feast for Odin, and that one has three books as well. There's like an appendix, there's the rule books, and then there's like, what's the other one?
What's the other one's an almanac?
History book?
There's like a history book.
Yeah, but then if you get the Norwegians expansion, there's another book, and if you have the mini tiles expansion, there's a little piece of paper you got to keep in the box.
I still think the most intimidating rule book and the longest teach is Feudum. Just like, I love Feudum. That's one of my favorite games ever. But teaching that game, I can see that being so overwhelming. And I think now that you're talking about the modules, I think the original Kickstarter for Feudum came with 3 or 4 modules.
Right. That's a Kickstarter thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I know like one of the modules actually kind of makes the game easier because have you played Feudum, Ryan?
I have not played it. I've watched it played. We have sort of like a Monday meetup where we have to like register, and basically we have a table, and if you either make the signups or you don't, right? And I was in the area at the time, and I just stopped and watched it. It's an absolutely gorgeous game. I love the art in the game, and it looks super cool. But I could tell that they were struggling with the rules a little bit.
There's a lot of like baby rules in that game, but at least with like one of the modules kind of makes. And I've only played it with this module, and even when me and Max and Ryan and we've played it, we've only ever played with this module, and it makes the game slightly easier. Which because you have to feed your pawns at the end of every round. And food is so damn hard to get in that game, but they have a module in there that you plant trees. Yeah, the squirrels expansion. So you plant trees, and when you populate the board anywhere there's a tree, a squirrel falls down, and you can go and eat it. So it's an easier way to get more food, so you don't feel like you ruin your whole strategy because you're 1 cube short. So it's I guess that's a nice thing, but even just getting all that content in at once is overwhelming.
And that kind of goes back to your question, Keegan, of like expansions that make it a bit easier, right, to get into. And it feels like it still keeps it as a very heavy game, but allows it to just be able to play a bit more fluidly. You're not completely worried, but like the original, like without that, almost feels like that could be like a competition level one, right? Where you're like, all right, people who really know this, have played it a lot, can almost go like competition with this, and like they really need to know their strategy, right? Yeah. Which is interesting.
Well, we've talked about the expansion fix before, because I know like Feast for. Have you played Feast for Odin, Ryan?
I have not played Feast for Odin. No.
Oh, really? Oh, that's good.
I have not played that one.
But they have the expansion, which is the Norwegians expansion. To me, like I would never play without it because it just adds a lot. But it also kind of fixes one area of the game that like it was a strategy that people like animals went for that wasn't in the base game very a viable strategy.
Yeah,
it kind of tweaks it and fixes it. But I'm always happy if like super happy for expansions like that if someone kind of realizes like they could make one part of their game a little more beefier or better or whatever too. Like I know some people are like, well, the original game should, like some people get mad about it. I'm like, no, just like it's great.
Yeah, you gotta allow people to patch their games. Like I mentioned earlier, there's so little money that we cannot play test with 1,000 people 100 times a piece or something, or 20 times a piece, and get 1,000 people who've played that many times so that we could find every single potentially like divergent strategy or whatever. Like it's just not feasible. And so when you release a game, then if it does well, like Feast for Odin's done amazing, right? It gets played a ton, and then people find things, and then you should try to be receptive and patch it. But yeah, to be upset about that, I don't know.
I actually think it's interesting. Like to me, that like is what's so cool about the board game community is that like you can reach out to somebody. Like I mean, like you can look at Board Game Geek and Uwe like talks with people on there and stuff. I know a lot of board game designers are on Reddit or on BGG, and like we'll talk with people. I'm like, that's such a cool thing about the board game community to me, is like that then somebody who like, you know, you've played this person's game so many times, you found every flaw or nuance in it, and then like that they can then tweak it and come out with something new is actually really cool to me, as opposed to like a frustrating thing. But you know, people are weird.
I mean,
it'd be frustrating if they weren't reaching out and like taking the critique and like listening to their audience. That would be frustrating. Like imagining like Root is amazing, but there was definite on the first edition, there were some factions that were super busted, and there's one that was super weak, and it probably can't win the game. And then they listened to the community, and they're like, hey, anytime we play with the Woodland Alliance, they fucking destroy everything. So they went in and they helped patch things out and like made new player boards. And I think the replacement boards were like $5. So it wasn't like a whole, they didn't like also shove it into its like a separate expansion, being like, if you want the new player boards, you also have to buy the new content. You can just get the player boards that you need. Yeah. So yeah, just having like, repeating what Max said, just the fact that designers are so willing to listen to people playing their games and be willing to critique things is super nice.
Yeah, and I was actually just going to bring that up too. Is the Root in the community design behind Root has been, I think, is awesome. That like how many people create just like personal factions, and that like I really love that this game sort of just can create this environment of like community development. I don't what's the I'm trying to think of like description of that, but yeah, like there's just like a whole section of like all these different factions that people have created, and that's actually one of mine that I actually thought about for one of an expansion idea, and I was like, to kind of bring it back a little bit, and I was like, if you think about like insects in it, and almost being like a faction that creates a swarm that is stronger the more they have, but really weak when there's fewer of them, would be an interesting way to try to play that. Yeah, that's one of my lists of like, I was just thinking of ants or something, or like wolves, where they're stronger in their pack, but then weaker when there's fewer of them.
Yeah.
Could be an interesting way to play it. And I mean, I haven't listened to their latest thing about what was their new expansion stuff that they were talking about.
Putting me on the spot.
That's right.
I think one's called the Warlords, and they have pawns and warriors. They have one pawn and they have warriors. And then you can use the Vagabond cards as the war leader, which is the pawn. So you can pick, like your war leader can change from game to game to make it even more asymmetric. And then I think the other faction, they want to do like a turtle-y faction that plays more defensively throughout the game. And I think they're doing Badgers for that.
Badgers?
If I remember correctly. But I mean...
Wait, they want to be turtle-y? They didn't go with turtles. They went with Badgers.
I think they were going to go turtles initially, but I think they didn't want to do that anymore for whatever reason. But... like Root's another game, like I think they talked about at the beginning, wanted to make that game more like campaign-y and having campaign options. Like, here's the new win condition for this faction, but I think they totally scrapped that entirely. But that's something I wish that could happen, because as much as I love that game, the whole race to 30 points thing doesn't seem very thematic with the rest of the universe of that game, where it's like fighting for control and fighting to do these things and rule the forest. But you could end up winning just because, you know, you wiped out a spot and you have 2 warriors left on the map, but every other faction is like 20 left, but you got the 31st. Like having some type of like campaignish mode or like scenario mode for that game would be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole 30, the race to 30 was, it didn't feel, like you said, quite right. Especially like, because yeah, you can get the 30 just simply because everyone else is doing their own thing and just ends up ignoring you because whatever you're doing doesn't quite interact with them. Like I specifically think of like Vagabond. They can just kind of go and do their own thing, right? But then like you look at like Eerie and Marquis, and they're fighting each other, and like, right, they're trying to like hold each other at bay this whole time, and they just can't, like, they just simply can't focus on the Vagabond, because if they do, they just kind of screw themselves over and like weaken themselves to the other faction.
That's why Root's a messy game. Have you played Root?
I have played Root. Yeah, that's a tricky one, because
Yes.
you have to learn all the different factions, or else you're just not. It's a lot of rules to learn. Like if you're teaching someone brand new, because if you don't tell them what each thing can do, then it's going to feel incredibly chaotic.
Do you have a favorite faction?
Oh no, I don't play Root that often.
Yeah, they love it enough to try and they're trying to make a whole video of each faction and how to do it so that people can get to the table.
With all the faction stuff and learning all the rules, Ryan, you and I backed this, but guess, Ryan, have you seen or heard of Merchant's Cove?
Nope.
It should be getting shipped to us, I think, in the next couple months, hopefully. But that game is another one where I can see that being a rules nightmare, because every single person is playing their own mini game to win.
Is that the one
But
that's like
I think
7
also-
different games in one game? It's like 7 different modules. It looks just crazy. Is that one?
They're not
No,
modules.
it's just like it's all taking
just,
place in like a cove where you're playing as a merchant, hence the name Merchant's Cove. But like the way that you score points and you're selling goods in this cove is a mini game. So like one faction or one player plays with a rondel, one player uses dice manipulation, one player does set collection.
Right.
And it's
one
all
has
different.
like these orbs that they're messing
One
with.
faction, the pirate, legit has this like an old school like spinner that you have to flick. So like, and it comes with like 3 expansions too. So that's another one that's just a huge dump of stuff right out the gate. But
Yeah,
But-
actually, I did see Rado do a video of this. Now that I looked it up, and if there's a lot of interaction, then it's gonna be rough. If it's pretty multiplayer solitaire, and you can just sort of learn your mini game and not have to worry about the other ones, then it'll be a little easier to learn.
yeah.
But things like Root, which are they have a little bit of work to get into. That initial investment is a little high. In the end, if you put in that investment, it seems like people are getting lots of replay out of it. So I think a tricky thing about design is that you can't really have the best of everything. You have to make trade-offs on things. And if you want to have that level of asymmetry, right, it comes at a cost. Right?
Yeah.
There's just no real way to avoid that initial learning curve.
Yeah.
And in thinking about it, I kind of think of it in that perspective. As they kind of like keep adding new factions in each expansion, I wonder how, I guess is more speculative, and how does that then kind of influence bringing new people in as they look at it and go, holy crap, there is 12 factions in this game, like throughout all their expansions.
You just don't tell them. You just here, you're the river folk. That's all you say. You don't give them an option. You don't pull it out of the box. You just say, "Here's who you are now."
That's like Fantasy Flight games. I looked into like the Arkham horror games or whatever. I was like, oh, maybe this is interesting. And it's like 45,000 packs you have to buy. I was like, no, like I can't do it.
Yeah,
because I'm a
and
completionist. I was like, I'll spend my birthright on this game, and it's not.
And that's a game too where you have to buy multiples of expansions of the same expansion, because you want to build like the perfect deck, and you have to have yeah.
But there are people that do it. I mean, there's I mean, I guess there's a thing for it.
But I guess it's more the question of like people that maybe don't have someone who knows, just say Root, Vast, Descent, all these games that have like, right, like a whole bunch of expansions behind it. Does it hinder someone new into getting into it because they've read and go, holy crap, there is 12 factions. There's so much in this fucking game. Like, how do we approach it if you don't have someone who already knows it? I guess
Well, the root base. I mean, just buy the base game. See if you dig the base game, and if you don't,
Right.
But like you said, you're like, oh my god, there's some like Arkham Horror, right? You see all of it, and does it?
We're stupid collection people that want to like, because I'm like, if I know I'll like this game, and I know I'll want to get everything, and my wife will kill me.
Yeah.
Because I'll spend all their money. So I just have to know personally. For me, I gotta stay away from those games, because even with like miniature games and stuff like that, like I can't. If I'm gonna kickstart something, it's like all in. Like, so that's why I have to stay off Kickstarter.
I guess to me this would be an interesting little like panel to do, of like talking to newer board games and say like, okay, or not a panel, but maybe like a survey to say, hey, are you more likely to get into it if you know that there's all of this for this game, or is it easier? Like, are you more likely to jump into a game that maybe has one expansion behind it, and you go, okay, this is rather like this doesn't feel as daunting as all these other things, and
who knows?
I think
that's why it's like I'm very curious of like just being mathematical and logical side, and wanting to understand like what might draw a person to the game, what might turn them away.
I think realistically with that too, like a big reason I also am, I know I would like Arkham Horror, the card game, because I grew up on playing TCGs, but seeing Arkham and knowing that there's expansions that are out of print, that's what's making me stay away from it.
Yeah.
If everything for the game was like consistently in print and I knew I could get it when I wanted it, then I'd be more inclined to jump into a big game like that. But since there's stuff that I know I can't feasibly get at a decent price, I'm just not even going to start it.
I did think of something interesting though, because we were talking about, for expansions, like maybe holding something back so you don't overwhelm people. I guess one way that some newer games have done it, either legacy wise or like I'm thinking like Gloomhaven or Pandemic. Like Gloomhaven, it seems like they threw every single thing they possibly could have into that game, but they parse it out. It's not all at once. Like it's like you get a new character, you get a new mod. Like it. So I guess that is a way to sort of do it. Or even like Glenmore 2, I know was a game that had a bunch of different modules, but it was like just do this and then open these ones up later once you get like pro at the game. Which is an interesting.
People will listen to you though, right?
I don't want to. I always want to open everything up. Like
right,
it was literally torture to not rip open every Gloomhaven thing. I was like, let's just get the new character. But I did. But that's more because of the other three people I was playing with probably would have killed me if I if I opened up all the seals. But I just thought of that though. Like I guess some games get around that with doing a legacy type aspect or whatever. But for a strictly the game
campaigns and legacies have a little bit more compliance, I think, right? Because you could say like you're going to ruin the story behind this if you open this too early, right? It's going to be no surprise or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas if something like Glenmore, right, that just has extra modules, someone could just be like, I'm super smart. Just put everything in there. Like, let's go.
It told me not to mix 7 with module 12. Well, we're doing it anyway.
Right, exactly.
Hey, I don't fucking listen to you.
This game sucks.
If they told us not to play 7-player route, I'm doing it.
No, that's a horrible idea.
Or like Everdell, where they say just don't play with all the expansions. It's just
people do.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a bad idea, but gotta try it.
And then I guess that like just the way my brain works always just wants to think like, all right, what's a way maybe to market or present or publish these games in a way that can work to help bring in newer players while also including all that stuff for them. I don't have a solution, but it's just like my mind always wants to think what could possibly be something you could do that could please both new players and players who love just wanting to go into all of them. But I don't know if there is a solution. I don't know that you can really do it, but my mind always just wants to go think about it. Is there something? What could you possibly do?
Well, come up with it, Ryan, then you'll sell 1 billion board games.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because if you can come up with that, crack that code.
I know, right? I guess I know we've gone way up, like we've just gone tangent after tangent. I'm not really on our. It just because this became a let's talk expansions. That's fine. It's fine.
Good.
It's the topic was just to help give us something to start talking about. But I do want to like an interesting one of my a game I really like was on the Underground one we did a video of. And
yeah.
that one I always go like I'd love to see a Chicago map and introduce multi-layer to it. Have you played it on the Underground?
I have not.
Right?
Nope.
No. It's. Are you familiar with it, or just understand what's? what the game?
I believe I've seen a video on it. I've
Okay.
watched videos on most things. I unfortunately don't have the time to play every game, but I do watch most of what comes out.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just like right now it's just like one layer. You're
Making routes and making
route
connections.
building, yeah. And I was like, well, an interesting aspect that you could add for maybe a little bit more of a challenge is an upper and low, like an upper and an underground aspect to it. When like you could easily do that with Chicago, where there's a whole loop that has the upper that branches out to the rest of Chicago, but then there's also the entire underground railroad that we have, the tracks that
The
would
L.
be the L, yes, that could easily that could not easily, I mean, but could be a very interesting aspect to mechanic to bring to this game that definitely could draw in heavier, like introduce a whole new heavier route and like network building.
Right. I think when games have like a pretty decent core, like you look at something like Age of Steam, right? And then you have a whole bunch of like user created maps, right? And then those user created maps can sort of explore ideas that a publisher can't really economically do, right? So, you know, on the Underground game, it may not make sense for them to push it into heavier gamers. That it feels like I know a bunch of people who are heavy gamers, but if you look at like the actual numbers, right, it's not that big, and you need to get you need to get a high percentage of that market, for it to make much sense. So, I think if you build a strong core and you can get a group of people playing it consistently, you see it with like Age of Steam, you see it with the 18xx games, and start getting them making new maps or new modules and things like that, then I think that's where you'll see the games that have a little bit more edge, right? You'll see the stuff that's a little sharper, a little bit more punishing, things like that. I think it's difficult to do that outside of sort of like a print and play type situation. I mean, I wish every game was heavy. I mean, that's not true, but like, I would like a lot of games to be heavier, but I also understand that that's just not a good strategy.
Do you play 18xx games?
I do not. Way too long for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, those people are dedicated.
They are definitely dedicated.
I've always wondered that, because I like it when I saw somebody came up with a pandemic idea. They took pandemic and they made Lord of the Rings basically out of it. So all the different cubes were the different types of orcs and stuff like that. And they shared it, and I thought it was amazing. And everyone was like, "Sell me let me." And it turned into a big copyright issue, I think, for them. So I've always, I'm curious with like about people like, I mean, obviously that's probably a huge compliment, but that probably also gets tricky to where like how much is your idea or their idea, or. I love it when games like like a game like something like Concordia has like 1 million maps that you can are double-sided and stuff like that. I think it's cool when the community comes up with that stuff, but I always wonder like Like as a designer, are you like?
Oh, 100% supportive.
You like those ideas? Like people to send you those ideas?
I will encourage it as much as possible. I will talk to the people who are making those things, and I will try to encourage them as much as possible. So 100%.
That's awesome.
And I don't care one bit if I get any credit for it or they mention my name or any of that stuff. Doesn't matter one bit to me. I would love for them to make content and sort of, add, anything being added to the game. I also am not a stickler to like house ruling. Like if you want to house rule my game to make it fun for you or your group, like if something about Pipeline irritates you, like take it out. I don't care. Like I don't feel like the rules that I made are like sacrosanct or anything. Like it's not. I'm just a dude. I made a game. I don't necessarily know what works for you or doesn't work for you. I pick an audience and I aim for it, and sometimes I do well, sometimes I don't do well, and do what you got to do. Like house rule if you want, make mods, put the mods up on BGG and share them. Like I definitely encourage people to anytime that they make something to share it on BGG, and I try to not that my like social media following is large at all, it's tiny, but like
you should see ours.
I'll retweet it and I'll do whatever. I'll try to push it as much as possible. So I don't know. I guess if I was making millions and somebody like put out something that, I don't know, like the guy who created Minecraft and then the other guy made Minecraft and made $1 billion off of it, and then the other guy made nothing off of it, that might hurt my feelings a little bit.
Yeah, understandably. No, I'm always so scared to step on people's toes with things like that, or even just like with Tabletop Simulator. I'm like, now is this the designer approved? Because like even I think it's with Tabletop Simulator, like a lot of designers will approve it, but like I don't know that all of the games on there are like strictly legal.
People have different views on that as well.
Right.
I'm also 100% for put it up on there. So we have Pipeline on Tabletop Simulator, and it's looking like it's also going to go on to Tabletopia as well here pretty soon. So yeah, to me, the more people who can try it, the better, and also the more that people modify it into different things that work for different folks, the better too. Yeah, I don't know.
No, that's really cool.
I don't think I'm special enough to worry about any of those things.
I'm with you. Like, I never understood why people get so upset if like the game is on Tabletop Simulator or anything, because in a way it is free marketing. Like you get a chance to play the game, and like if you like the game, then you're gonna go buy it. And it gives you a chance to test it. And even if you're a person who's like, if you see a game and you're skeptical about it and you don't get a chance to play it, there's still the chance that you're like, more than likely you're still not just going to go buy it to try it, because it's $70 on average you have to spend for a game. Then you don't like it, you feel like that's a waste. But if you can try it beforehand and see if it's worth the investment, that's great. I never understood why people are so against it.
Right. I don't want anybody to buy my games that don't like them. Right. In no way am I like, what would be great for me to make a couple bucks off of this game and then just like piss somebody off for 2 hours or 3 hours or however long it takes. Like, it's not worth it for me in any ways. I'm not trying to trick anybody. Like, I don't try to push or peddle my stuff. Like, I want people who enjoy the stuff to buy it. I definitely don't want someone to be like, oh, I dropped $70 and then like, I hate this guy now. That's not what I'm shooting for.
I imagine no designer is, but yeah. So you're not going to put family weight on any of your new Pipeline like reprints? Confuse anybody?
No, I wish I could convince people that whenever I'm telling people it's something that is thinky, like I truly mean it. Maybe eventually people. Like, after I have enough games out, people will be like, okay, there's a trend here. Like,
they should start to get it now, I think, after games.
Maybe we know, right? Like, maybe that's the case. But no, I absolutely don't want to mislead anybody on anything. I absolutely, there's no point. What's the point? It's not good. Like, it's not worth it. So, yeah, Tabletop Simulator, I'm all for. Tabletopia, if somebody wanted to put my thing on Board Game Arena, I'd be fine with that too. I think it would be a little tough to put Pipeline on Board Game Arena, but maybe something like Curious
That'd
Cargo.
probably be a lot, yeah. All right, guys.
that's the automated one, yeah.
So we're gonna play Pipeline again soon. We're going
Yes.
to
Not at midnight?
We're going not at midnight, and we're going to come up with expansion ideas. We are.
Maybe you will.
Yeah,
It's going to be, my idea is a tile that is a 12 by 1, and it's
12 by 1!
It's one huge pipe.
It doesn't turn at all. It's just a
No,
just
it's
a
just one long
straight pipe.
and that-
Ryan was telling me when he was trying to think of this, like, he was telling me, I was like, I don't think I'm going to think of any ideas. He's like, I just always sit there and try and think of how to make something better, or just what could be more, what's better, what's more. I just want more. And I was just like, that's why you're going to be forever alone.
Wow.
Hardcore.
Thank you.
You just got to settle. Just take what's there. Listen to the
Just gotta
rules.
settle.
No house rules. I'm just messing with you.
Great, this is on the recording. I'm not. Wonderful.
Don't you miss me? Aren't you glad I'm back?
Don't leave. Well, it's about an hour and 10, so it's about our wrap-up time. Ryan, we wanna thank you for joining us and chatting expansions. It didn't quite go into expansion ideas, but that's okay.
We covered one.
We covered one. I just have
two. We
listen.
did
I have
Wingspan
too
and-
many that I just want to chat with someone about. Leave me alone. This was my thing.
You can do a solo podcast.
I'll do a solo one and just talk about my ideas, because anyone would care. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It was fun. Is there anything I know you talked a little bit, but anything you want to plug? Let people know what's coming out soon. For them to have a look out for.
So Pipeline and Curious Cargo are supposed to both have an expansion coming out this year.
Okay.
I have something else coming out that I can't talk about yet.
Ooh, okay. Okay.
So there'll be 2 expansions and a new game coming out from me this year is how it's currently looking.
Okay.
Obviously, things have been, the world has been on fire recently.
Yeah.
So, everything I guess is still up in the air. But the Curious Cargo and the Pipeline expansion Pipeline expansion is, I just looked at the final art today.
Okay.
So
Nice.
that should be getting out there soonish.
Okay.
And then Curious Cargo is going to have a solo added. It is going to have a mode that is simpler, and it also is going to have a mode that is harder. So I put both.
That's awesome.
Well, then we're gonna have to review that. Is the new game also going to be with Capstone? Or are you going elsewhere for that one?
No, it won't be with Capstone for this
Okay.
one. No.
Doing something different. Are any of them going to Kickstarter? Or are they all just going to be a pre-order?
I
we should
believe
look at?
that it will be on Kickstarter.
Okay.
The Capstone stuff, I think Capstone has
Do they do
gone
Kickstarter?
to pre-orders only now.
Okay.
So I think Capstone has moved to pre-orders. But yeah, it sort of depends on what publisher I'm working with.
Yeah.
I'm not self-publishing. I try to sign all my stuff with publishers because that's a lot of work.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, good. Okay. So we'll just have a look out with Capstone for when those pre-orders are coming, and the Kickstarter when we hear about it. Hopefully that'll be up on your page, or we'll hear it from you. Or so yeah, everyone, go check them out at RCC Games on Instagram. Are you also on Twitter?
Twitter's the same handle.
Twitter's same. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you.
Yeah, it was really good talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah. Until next time. See you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.